Hey, everybody. This is your host, Jonah Lupton. Welcome to the Startup Sense podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Of course, we have a great episode for you. As some of you may know, I spent the last couple of years living in Wilmington, North Carolina, had a great time, came back to Massachusetts for a few months to see my family, and now I'm moving back down south, but this time I think I'm going to Charleston, South Carolina. So with that in mind, I've reached out to some people I know in Charleston, asking for introductions to some of the top startup founders and startup executives down there. And one of the names that I came across was a company called Stream, and they provide live streaming for consumers and enterprise. And today we're going to talk to the Chief Marketing Officer, Will Jamieson. Will, how are you, man?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. So Will has been on the team for about a year and a half. The company was started 2 years ago. Bootstrapped. They're out there possibly raising some money now. But Will, tell us about the company. What do you guys do?
Sure. So we are a end-to-end live streaming platform used by media companies, brands, professional sports teams around the U.S. to where they can go live from any device of their choosing and host that content on their own digital property to seamlessly monetize it.
Awesome.
The easiest way to think of it's kind of a white-labeled version of Facebook Live to where people actually own the content and can monetize it.
So that's a big difference, right? Because I mean, Facebook Live, most of us have seen it now. Our friends have done live streaming, and the notifications drive me insane. But for some of these big media properties that we talked about in the pre-call, if they drive traffic to Facebook Live, they have no way to monetize that, correct? So you provide, I guess, a more monetizable solution, if that's even a word.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not our product to be 100% replacement of Facebook Live. Facebook Live, I think, is still great for these media companies to build their audience, just piggybacking off of Facebook's social graph. But where we really come into play is giving them the same technology stack, but the seamless monetization of it by allowing them to own the content. So they can make more money by using us at the end of the day.
So when we talked before, the story of Stream is pretty interesting because you guys originally grew the user base very rapidly, right? You guys went from 0 to 1 million pretty quickly.
Correct. Within 1 year, just by leveraging just different growth hacking marketing techniques and identifying the right users that really cared about live video and wanted to broadcast to their friends. And it was before the Facebook Live and Periscope as well. So we really had the ability to attract users on a new concept.
So I know you were also a co-founder of YikYak, so you probably you learned a lot of those growth marketing tactics at YikYak. So what are some of the ones that you used at Stream that were the most effective?
Really identifying core groups of people within that had similar interests and piggybacking off of them. If you were able to get one friend to use the application, you have a higher chance of getting the next friend to use it because there's already some sort of familiarity there, as opposed to just going with like a blanket approach and just trying to get as many people that have no related interests at all. You can do that to get a lot of users quickly, but the user attention on them is going to be difficult because they're not going to be seeing content that's relevant to them or content that's created by someone that they care about. So it's really focusing on a community around the initial user base and then expanding from there.
Same problem. I mean, I was very, very early on in, signing up for LinkedIn and Twitter. And, back in, 2003 or 2004 on LinkedIn and then 2006 on Twitter, none of my friends were using it yet. So I feel like I had no one to talk to. And in your case, people had no one to kind of stream to.
Exactly.
So so essentially it was get a user and then get that user to invite their 10 best friends, right?
For the most part, yeah. We allow them to link into their socials, identify other friends that have it via social, connect with their contacts, just to be able to draw real-world connections immediately and make it seem as if that they weren't the only one on this application, that they actually had friends and they weren't with just a group of strangers. So
how did growth slow, if it did slow down, but how did the growth trajectory change once you saw Facebook Live, once you saw Periscope and Meerkat all come online, a little bit more competitive on the consumer side? What did that do for kind of the downloads and engagement and activity with the app?
So the existing user base was really loyal to the platform. They still use it on a pretty regular weekly to daily basis because of the sense of community that they built. It started with just with groups built around friends and then expanded to more of a community with everyone was feeling welcome. And those people still use it. There's unique platforms or direct messaging where they can communicate offline, and there's just a sense of friendship. From new user perspective, it slowed down a little bit just because the competitive landscape really increased, and people had all their friends immediately on Facebook. So if they really wanted to just broadcast to their friends, they would use that. Whereas if they want to discover new friends or meet new people through live video stream would be a better solution for them.
Right. Okay. Now, I mean, I know the consumer side of it is just a piece of the business. I think, certainly the more exciting side, maybe for you guys, especially on revenue, is the enterprise side of the business. So talk to us about that.
Yeah. So as soon as Facebook Live launched, we really saw that we needed to do more than just a consumer application. And we identified that Facebook Live was never going to give up content ownership rights. And their biggest users were giant media publishers or local newspapers that make money off of content. And we saw that was a capability to facilitate them leveraging our existing technology and kind of provide a white label version of the product for them to broadcast and host it on their site and everywhere. So we've seen really good traction with that. And we're really able to simply just pick off of Facebook Live's marketing budget every time that they run an ESPN ad or pay someone a ridiculous amount of money to use their platform. It gives live video more awareness. And the more awareness live video has, the more success we're going to have, because we don't have to convince people to make money and to live stream. We just have to tell them, you're already live streaming. Here's a solution to start making money.
So you guys clearly have a better solution for anyone that has a large audience and wants to try to monetize that audience while they're live streaming. But how do you find those clients, or those enterprise clients, or the large influencers? Maybe it could be a celebrity, it could be anyone that wants to host your solution on their website. How do you find them? How do you attract them to become a client?
So we identify them based off a bunch of different ways. Typical, just cold calls, identify media companies out there, work with or constantly on Facebook, identifying media companies that are going live right now, because if they're going live on Facebook, there's a higher % chance that they're going to want to go live to their website as well. Another way is attending conferences focused around media. We attended ONA, which was the Online News Association, a few months back, which was pretty much local newspapers from around the U.S. and journalists that were coming to learn about new tools and technology. And Facebook Live was the big topic of discussion there. And it was really easy for us to come in and be like, okay, yeah, Facebook Live's great. We encourage you to still use it, but here's another tool to add to your repertoire to help you monetize the cool content you're creating. And it's just really diving into the network of media companies.
Who are some of the big brands that you guys are already working with?
So we're currently working with Sheriff Communication. They're a big media company in the Midwest. It has, I think, around 30 newspapers. They use us across their digital properties. Also working with the Charleston Battery, a professional soccer team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Denver Broncos leverage us in stadium.
How'd you guys get
with TEDx conferences?
How'd you guys get into these sports teams?
So the Jacksonville Jaguars actually reached out to us initially because they wanted to help boost their in-stadium engagement via live video. And that was just a nice little warm introduction there. With the Denver Broncos, we actually work directly with a company called TopFan. It's a technology partner for them that are in a bunch of other teams, influencers, to where they create them a white labeled application for all their fans to go to their own property. And we're the technology tool that's built into their applications.
Now, there is technology out there that you guys could have, licensed, but instead you guys decided to build everything internally. So it's your own proprietary technology. Why did you guys make that decision, assuming that it was a large investment in cost?
Right. So before the company ever started, we knew we wanted to build a live video application, and we did a survey of technologies out there that would allow you to go live from a cell phone or professional camera and play back anywhere you wanted. The biggest company in the business that the solution was Wowza. We identified it, and we saw that, number one, it was very expensive, and the worst thing that could happen to us was we would be successful, and we couldn't afford to pay Amazon and Wowza our internet bill. And we also weren't pleased with its latency capabilities as well as throughput per node, and decided if we were going to do something in live video, we're going to make an upfront investment and build our own technology stack in-house. And that's exactly what we did. So before the product launched, we were sitting on our own internal media server and have been using it ever since. Even Facebook and Periscope were powered by Wowza. And we made that upfront investment to be independent.
This is Jonah Lupton, founder of the Lupton Group and host of the Startup Sense podcast. Are you struggling to find the right tech team to build your company's website or mobile app? Maybe you've developed a product but need help with your go-to-market strategy, including branding and marketing. Well, stop worrying, because my team at the Lupton Group can assist you with all of those needs. We specialize in helping entrepreneurs and startups of all sizes launch and grow their businesses. For a free consultation, you can email me at jonahlupton@gmail.com or visit our website at luptongroup.co. You guys are bootstrapped to date. Do you have plans to raise capital?
Yes, we're actually in the process of doing our Series A right now. We've bootstrapped to date, had great success with it, but really identified our product market fit right now with serving media publishers and anyone that wants to monetize video content. And we are going to continue to go with make moves with that, and really just want to raise capital to accelerate growth.
I mean, in order to compete with some of those big boys, like, that we've already mentioned, that have raised tons of capital, I mean, I guess you need some cash in the bank to be able to compete with them on some of those big clients.
Exactly. We really want to build out our sales team as well as hire a few more developers to just accelerate.
What do clients typically pay you guys to use the service?
It's 100% on a data transfer basis. So let's say I'm a local blogger that covers news, and I have a very small audience. It could be as low as $200 a month. But if I'm a giant media company that has 100 million uniques on my website a month, it's going to scale proportionally to data transfer based off them.
Okay, cool.
So the beauty of that model for the end customer is that if you're paying more for internet data, you have more people on your site, and you're making more money off ads, and the product pays for itself.
Right. What are some of the, now that you guys have been doing this for a couple of years, I mean, I'm sure you've made some mistakes along the way, maybe with the technology. For instance, were there any features that you guys kind of built into the solution that turned out that really weren't being used, or any features that you wish you had put into the original version that you had to add later?
Not that I can actually think of. I mean, we've built features that haven't been utilized 100% to our expectation, but that's the beauty too of owning your own infrastructure, is it allows you to move quick and adjust as opposed to being dependent on third parties to innovate as well. So if we wanted to make some change to our media server to impact low latency or different throughput, we can do that. We don't have to call up a third party and be like, this is a feature we want, can you make it happen? So that's a luxury of owning everything in-house as well.
Now, who, in terms of the hosting servers, if I'm a media publisher and I do a live broadcast and, I have 10,000 people watching, does the media publisher have to have the servers to handle that capacity, or is it you guys?
We're the ones that handle that capacity. So it's our entire infrastructure sits on top of Amazon. That's completely, it's independent of Amazon though. If we wanted to spin up and host it on Azure or Google Cloud, we could do that instantly. And we're the ones handling the scaling traffic, not the publishers.
Okay. How has the relationship with Amazon been? I mean, I know they've had a couple outages over the last couple of years, but I mean, overall, has it been pretty good?
So far, we've had great success with them. Yeah.
Cool. Talk to us about Charleston, because Charleston is this, small but rapidly growing startup community. Talk to us about, what's going on down there, maybe how it's grown over the last few years and what it's like building a business there.
Sure. It's, I love it. I've been in Charleston for 2 years, and it really has a startup ecosystem behind it. We call ourselves the Silicon Harbor, and because of the startup scene that's starting to develop, there's probably 10 to 15 unique ones in there that really all try and help each other out to really grow and just reinvest in the community. It's great from the community standpoint, but also the cost. It's much, much cheaper than trying to run a company out in the Silicon Valley, in LA or New York, just because the cost of living in Charleston is much cheaper.
Right.
It's
I mean, I'm from Boston, and I've compared prices in Boston and New York, Charleston, and I mean Charleston's probably at least on rent, 30 to 40% cheaper, if not more than that, than the big cities.
right, which is awesome. And if you like to live on a beach too, it's also a plus.
And then also, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say that the one big disadvantage though being from Charleston is sometimes you're disconnected from the full tech scene out in New York and San Francisco and don't have as many relationships. But it's not really that big of a disadvantage because all you have to do is get on an airplane and fly. And you can fly direct to New York from Charleston and just one layover in Atlanta to San Francisco and you're good to go.
Right.
So if you're willing to do the travel, it's not really a disadvantage because you still are connected. I have connections in all the major cities because I live on an airplane and put my head down in Charleston.
So, I mean, in terms of finding investors and getting media attention, that's what you're referring to, right? It's a little bit harder in Charleston,
Correct.
just if things aren't well known down there.
Right. No one from TechCrunch is going to be looking online for sexy startups in Charleston. It's going to be up to you to go reaching out to them or having existing relationships in place. The same thing with investors. Some occasionally will look at companies coming out from Charleston that are from San Francisco. But for the most part, it's up to the company to go out and make those connections themselves.
Right. So now that you guys are in the process of raising some money, what's been your strategy to find the right investors?
Companies that are very knowledgeable of the space and appreciate the technology that we've built. Since we are the only ones that built our own media server, we're sitting on a lot of value with that IP right there, as well as people that have connections in the media space because they're the ones that will really help us take us to the next level with much easier sales paths to big companies like Gannett or Tronc because of their knowledge, and they know that we're a higher ROI solution than other ones out there.
Gotcha. Okay. So you identified, 10, 15, 20 VC firms in the country that kind of, that have that expertise, and you reached out to them and now you're setting up meetings?
Correct. Or existing relationships in place. Cold reaching out to VCs typically doesn't have the highest response rate just because they get hit up most of the time or just all the time. And the best way to go about it is leveraging your existing network and asking for introductions.
Right.
Because if you know someone that knows a VC and they make an intro, there's a much higher % chance you'll actually get a meeting set up with them. And then they trust you immediately a little bit more because it was a referral as opposed to someone just hitting them up blindly.
So how big is the Stream team right now?
We're 18, 19 full-time employees.
Cool. And you guys are mostly, I would assume the majority of those people are technical engineers? Yes,
we're very engineering focused. The majority of the team has a computer science degree, even if they don't code on a daily basis. If required, they could, and they could commit code to Git any day of the week.
Now, can you find that type of talent in Charleston, or do you have to recruit from outside the area and get people to relocate?
There's actually a lot of talent directly in Charleston. So there's major companies, Boeing, Volvo has a new plant, Benefit Focus, Blackbot are all publicly traded companies, and they're doing great things. They have tons of talent underneath them, and if they've been around doing more of a corporate coding job for a while, and you want to recruit them to a startup company, it's not too difficult to do.
And I would think that you're paying those guys a lot less than you'd be paying them if they lived in Boston or San Francisco, which means when you guys raise money, that money goes a lot farther because it's not as much of it is going into labor.
Exactly. It's a huge advantage there. And it's one of the reasons we've been able to bootstrap the company to date, as opposed to if we were in San Francisco, we probably would have had to raise money a lot earlier.
Right. Oh, for sure. When you're paying guys $200,000 a year as engineers.
Right.
So what's been the biggest challenge since you came on board? Whether it was the technology, whether it was the hiring, the marketing, building relationships, what stands out as the biggest challenge for you?
Building relationships probably in the media space and really learning a lot about the industry. Prior to this, none of us came from the media background. We knew media companies, but we didn't know anyone in them. And we didn't really exactly know what their needs were and how they made money. And learning that whole process and adapting and moving rapidly has been the biggest challenge. But I think also one of our biggest strengths, that the ability for us to learn and then adapt and execute so quickly.
So as the CMO, what are the KPIs or metrics that you like to look at to kind of evaluate how things are going?
So I look at multiple things. So CMO may not necessarily be the best title because I do everything from business development, capital raising, to consumer marketing. But main things I'm focused on right now are ARR as well as daily retention on the consumer application. So the more deals we have in our pipeline, the more money we're making at the end of the year, as well as just making sure our users are still coming back to leveraging the consumer platform.
In terms of, I mean, you guys raise money, a lot of things change. Obviously, you're more, you can become more focused on growth. So you don't have to worry about the bottom line quite as much. I mean, I assume that'll take a little bit of stress off your plate, right?
Right. It'd be great. Really looking forward, because the biggest thing that we really want to do with the money is build out the engineering team a little bit more, as well as build a sales team. Because right now it's just me and one other guy that are doing all the networking and the sales and product integrations with these companies. And to be able to build that out more would be very helpful and really help us take it to the next level.
Do you think after you guys raise money, you'll put more emphasis into the enterprise side of it, or unsure yet?
Yes, the majority of it will be going towards the enterprise side. That's where we really see the highest growth and momentum right now, and we'll continue to focus the product. But the consumer application will still always be there. We have this pretty cool feature that we just launched called brand tagging that allows and essentially citizen journalism to happen, to where me as an individual could go live. I could tag Post and Courier in Charleston if some breaking news coverage happened. Post and Courier then has access to this video feed and can republish it wherever they want. So kind of the way that Periscope always initially wanted to be with the citizen journalism play, but actually taking the citizens and allowing the media companies to rebroadcast them and amplify them.
Just a couple last, rapid fire questions I'd like to throw at our guests. If you could be mentored by anybody, who would it be?
Do
you have a favorite CEO out there or a favorite entrepreneur that you like to follow?
I'd probably go with Elon Musk, just because he's a crazy innovator and he's done so much, and he's an absolute savage.
Awesome. He's definitely a popular mention on the show.
Right.
Who's your dream client that you'd like the company to be able to work with in 2017?
I'd love to work with Gannett Media Group. So Gannett's they're the USA Today network. They own probably 100 plus newspapers in the U.S. And if we do a deal with Gannett, we have 100 plus newspapers that are pretty much all mainstream, and everyone knows they're all household names, which would be incredible.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, certainly the old way of consuming news is changing. I mean, people don't get newspapers delivered to their house anymore. So these old school media companies have to find new ways to adopt technologies, right?
Correct.
And last question, do you have a favorite blog or book that you could recommend to us?
My favorite book, that's probably Wisdom of the Crowds. So it's a really cool concept about the words of the many are more intelligent than the words of the few. And it goes into depth in all these case studies around everything, comparing the stock market to gambling to real life events, of how the wisdom of the many is always smarter than the few, and really always take that book as a collective thought in any decision I make.
Awesome. So you've been involved with two very cool startups that, I'm aware of, YikYak and now Stream. What have you learned over the last 4 or 5 years that's made you a better entrepreneur today? And what advice would you share with someone else that's getting ready to take that journey for the first time?
Fail fast and learn quickly. The worst thing you can ultimately do is just have your mind set on something that you're so convinced it's going to work, and it's not going to ultimately work, and you got to do more than that and learn and adapt. An example of that for us would be making the transition from consumer only to also focusing on the enterprise platform. If we, without doing that pivot, we would be in a totally different position today.
How did you guys make that decision? Like, what was the conversation like that you guys had, to determine that enterprise needed to happen?
Really identifying the market and the timing. It was like, we're never going to have as much marketing money as Facebook to be able to pay people millions of bucks a year to use our platform exclusively. But we also saw that Facebook was doing the hard thing and educating the market on the importance of live video for us. And by doing that, we saw that, okay, people are going to ultimately have to monetize this content. Our technology platform would be the perfect solution.
Awesome. In 3 years, do you think Stream will be an independent company, or do you guys think you'll be acquired by a larger company?
It really just depends on everything that happens. 3 years down the road is too hard to predict, in my opinion. We could keep sustaining as an independent company, or someone might ultimately buy us. You never know. Our
Awesome.
technology could be applied to many different sectors of business. So media companies are just one, but we can expand anywhere to just data distribution, CDNs down the road if we ultimately choose to. So we've kind of positioned ourselves for both potential outcomes, long-term growth, if need to be.
Well said. I know it's a hard question to answer, and in this, in the entrepreneur's mind, 3 years seems like forever, anyways. And it's just impossible to predict that long out the road. Final question: how can we find you online? What's the best way for us to connect with you?
My Twitter is Will Jamieson 93. That's probably, if you shoot me a tweet at me, I'll always respond. Or my email is will@stream.live. Either one of those two works.
And obviously, if people want to learn more about the company, either the consumer side or the enterprise, they can just go to stream.live.
Yep, stream.live is the domain.
And you guys are on iOS and Android, correct?
iOS and Android, yep, and web as well.
And web, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Will, for being a guest. Really, really pleasure to talk to you. Certainly want to wish you the best in 2017, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great one.
Man. You too. Bye-bye.